two, three.
When I started to heal my relationship with food, I reduced my processed sugar intake and my processed food intake. And when I still wanted to binge on 10 bananas and a jar of natural peanut butter, I was like, this is not the food. This is so much deeper than the food.
Deeper,
And this
right?
is the thing I
Okay.
see with people who stop drugs or drinking. They'll go to food because they may not
Yes.
have fully healed the wounds, the traumas, the unworthiness, and all the things that were triggering them to self sabotage in the first place. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about cutting out certain foods or minimizing your intake of certain foods, it is the deep emotional healing. So we must be willing to start learning about and building awareness about what's triggering us to binge or emotionally eat. We must
Okay.
understand these behaviors are rooted in unworthiness and not feeling good enough. There's a void to fill that you will never fill with food or alcohol or whatever that drug of choice is.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to start to feel through our emotions without needing to use food to cope. And we need time and space and tools to help us process through what's going on. So, this is
Mm-hmm.
what helps us realize the food is my drug of choice. However, it's my responsibility to start taking ownership and responsibility and understanding why I'm behaving like this.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Minnie Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Amber Romaniuk, emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert. And Amber and I are going to be talking on the topic today, healing emotional eating, how to reconnect with your body and reclaim your power. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you for having me, Mirna. I'm so grateful to be here with you today.
You're very welcome. Yes. And I've only had one conversation on, the hundreds of episodes that I have on eating disorders, and it was binge eating. So,
Yep.
emotional eating. And I know that one of my questions here is what is the difference? So, yeah, I will be learning along with my audience on this emotional eating situation here. Awesome. So let me give you guys a brief introduction. Amber Romanuk is an emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert with 12 years experience helping high achieving women create a level of body confidence, intuition, and optimal health through powerful mindset healing, self-care, and overcoming self-sabotage with food. She does this through addressing the key negative thought patterns and limiting beliefs that help women keep stuck in the same behaviors for years and decades that they haven't been able to break. Her podcast, the No Sugarcoating Podcast, has over 2 million downloads, over 600 episodes, and is listened to in over 90 countries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amber overcame her own emotional eating after gaining and losing more than 100 pounds, spending over $50,000 on binge foods, and spending 5 years balancing her hormones and digestion. She also dismantled her deep limiting beliefs and behaviors, keeping her stuck in the same looping patterns. Now she helps others achieve the biggest healing miracles of body freedom so they have the confidence and health to create amazing lives. Yeah. We're right now in a obesity epidemic. And
Mhm.
I am sure that more than 50% of that is contributed to emotional eating. You're upset, you go get that ice cream, you go get that comfort food. So, very happy to dive into this topic. So, as we start off, Amber, your story and your podcast have inspired women in over 90 countries, as I mentioned in the bio. Can you share your journey to body freedom and how your own struggles with food and body image led you to the path of healing and becoming a voice for emotional eating recovery.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so funny when people read my bio, I think they assume that the 1,000 pounds is a typo and that it's 100, but I actually lost and gained over 1,000 pounds in
Yeah, I
five
know. I
years.
changed that.
Yeah, it's not a typo. And that's because when you're in binge eating, I actually struggled with everything: bulimia, binge eating, food addiction, and emotional eating. And when you're in these behaviors and you're in the all or nothing between trying to diet and gain control with food and you're losing control, it's so easy to fluctuate 20, 30, 40 pounds every few months and see that 1,000 pound weight gain and weight loss in that period of time. So for me, all of this started, well, things that contributed to it getting really bad in my early 20s, and we all have these things that happen when we're young, whether we realize it or not. So when I was 5, it was my first day taking the bus. And I got on the bus, and the older boys called me fat and ugly. And then the whole bus made fun of me. And I really took that on, and I really felt very hurt by it. And I took on the identity of fat and ugly for the next 20 years of my life. And I thought, if perfect strangers are saying it, it must be true. And then I grew up in I'm the only child, and my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was born. And so one of, I think, her ways of compensating in our relationship was with food. I think she felt a lot of guilt around a lot of things we couldn't do together because of her symptoms. And after I healed my relationship with food in my 20s, I lovingly observed that she was dealing with a food addiction for most of her life after that diagnosis. And I think it was a huge way of her coping as well, that she was always hiding food in wrappers and over consuming. And so I think part of it was I inherited it from her. I'm not blaming her, but we can pass things down through our lineage so easily and not even realize the impacts that it's having. I love my mom dearly. She was an amazing mom. But that definitely played a role, and food was always available. So I could eat whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted: sugar, baked goods, fast food, like it was always there, and no mention of quantities or you can only have a little bit. It was just kind of a free for all. And then I started dieting in my early tweens and teens, reading teen magazines. You know, you start absorbing Hollywood and pop culture and media, and there's so much pressure around being thin. Everything's photoshopped and edited. So they start to program you that there's something wrong with you because you don't look like the fake edited photoshopped images and videos. And then it really hits at your self-worth and you don't feel good enough. And they really teach us to tie our worth to the way that we look rather than it being a feeling that we feel inside. And so that starts the diet restriction. And then in my early 20s, the food addiction and the binge eating really got bad. When I had a breakup, I was so hurt I could barely eat and I lost weight really quickly. And I reached my goal weight really quickly. And I really had been convinced by the diet and weight loss industry that once you lose weight, you'll finally be happy. And I wasn't after I lost the weight, and it didn't fix anything. And I feel like I was more miserable and more critical, and my period disappeared, and all these things started happening with my hormones. And then it was like this switch flipped. And I remember my first memorable binge was at a party, and I would usually go and just go, I'm just going to eat salad. I'm just going to be on my diet. But that night I ate a piece of ice cream cake, and that kind of triggered this. Well, I had some, so I've messed up. So whatever, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And then I had more ice cream cake, and I had a burger, and I had a chocolate bar that was on the counter for everybody, and went and hid in the bathroom and ate it, and then left and got fast food and ate until I was so full I was sick. And then the next morning, of course, kind of birthed that all or nothing where it was like panicked. Oh my gosh, I gained weight. I'm puffy. Now I've got to go to the gym for 3 hours. I'm skipping breakfast and lunch to compensate. And that all or nothing of restriction over exercise, dieting, and then losing control really became an immense struggle for me for the next couple of years. And then I gained 80 pounds in 4 months, became
Oh my gosh.
unrecognizable,
Wow.
was binge eating like 5 or 6 days a week, went through a period of binging and purging because I thought purging would prevent weight gain. And if I'm uncomfortable and full, I can just get rid of it. But obviously, as I was starting to take ownership responsibility for what I was doing, I started to realize that I am not taking any ownership and responsibility if I purge, and it's just being even more destructive on my body. So I was able to stop that after 6 months. Something maybe that some people don't realize can be a thing is chewing and spitting out food. Like I was like, oh, if I just chew it and spit it out, I won't gain any weight. So I went through that phase. And then the binge
Oh my
eating was just,
goodness.
yeah, very uncontrollable for a couple of years. And I tried to go to the organic store and buy the food because I thought if I go to the organic store, it's a better choice. But when you're eating a table full of food, it doesn't matter the quality of the ingredients because your body can't handle copious amounts of food. And so what really prompted me to get on my healing journey. Because here's the thing, when you're struggling, it doesn't matter whether it's emotional eating, binge eating, bulimia, you're a people pleaser, you're a perfectionist, you're last on your priority list, whatever it is that's going on for you, we can sit in the state of denial. Even though we're suffering so much, it's like, well, it's not really a big deal. Food's my friend. I really like having my show and eating my food. And so I was in this huge denial state that what I was doing to myself wasn't a big deal. And that's part of what kept me stuck in this comfort zone of suffering. Because even though I was suffering, what I was doing was very comfortable and familiar. And so the thought of changing all of that felt incredibly intimidating and overwhelming because I had no health background, no idea what to do. And so I just stayed in it until the suffering got so immense that I could no longer tolerate being in denial and tolerate suffering. And so my low point moment was a night that I'd thrown the food in the garbage and I was just laying on the couch in tears in physical and emotional pain, thinking, I don't think I'm going to make it to 30 if I keep treating myself like this because I was so destructive on my body, physically and emotionally. And after my digestion settled and the food settled, there would always be this voice that would come in. I call it the inner critic that would be like, well, if this is the last time you're going to do this, you might as well go get the rest of the food. And so I was like, yeah, okay. So I went and
Yeah,
dug through my garbage. I grabbed the
yeah.
cookies and ate them. And then I sat on the floor in immense shame, guilt, and embarrassment. And then I threw everything in the back alley in the dumpster outside and went and grabbed it out of there. And I was like, I just ate out of the dumpster in the back alley in my garbage can. Who am I? What am I doing? How did this get to be my life? Like, I do not
Wow.
understand at all, but I needed those moments to happen to crush the denial. I'm like, this is a big deal. I can no longer be in denial that this isn't. I'm suffering immensely. I'm no longer willing to stay in this. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no idea what the journey is going to look like. I feel like there's so much to do, but I got to get on the journey. And kind of the way I described it is I feel like I was on the edge of the Amazon jungle with a butter knife, getting ready to just like find my way through because that's how big it felt in the
Mm,
beginning. And I get in the beginning, this journey feels huge because you're just like, where do I even start? There's so much. And then I went on the healing journey for the next few years. And I'm happy to touch on any of those healing layers because it was
okay.
very physical, mental, emotional, energetic, etc. And
Wow.
then healing really prompted me and inspired me to want to help women with this because I started to realize what an epidemic it was.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's
Not
a huge
maybe
epidemic.
intense as yours, but a lot of people that are a lot of women, I don't know, maybe men too, obviously.
Yep.
A lot of women and men eat emotionally because of you just said that you had a breakup that people do whenever break up people when they're disappointed,
Yep.
even bored.
Yep. Oh
I
yeah,
mean, that's
totally.
one of the biggest things. You're bored, you ain't got nothing to do, you go to the fridge, and it's all emotional eating. So but you touched on the binging, and I was waiting to hear if after you binge you're going to purge because
Yeah.
I like I said when I had one guest on the show, and then I remember Princess Diana and all those people that eat binge, and then they stick their hands in their mouth,
Hmm.
and they purge. But you said something very interesting. They purge because they feel that they're not going to gain weight after they purge. But you said that you still gain weight even
Hmm.
after you purge.
100%. And that's because of the immense stress that purging puts on your body. So it's destructive and violent enough to binge to the point you're so full, you're sick and feel yourself so full of food that it's so stressful on your gut, your hormones, inflammation, your nervous system. But purging is such a violent and destructive act because you're purging up stomach acid that should not be coming up your esophagus and into your mouth. It
Mm,
damages your teeth. Over
okay.
time, chronic purging has a really negative impact on your cardiac and your heart health. Like it can
Okay.
contribute to women getting to the point where they can have heart attacks and strokes. It is so hard on your hormones. I've worked with women who've been in binge purge cycles for 10 plus years, and they're in their 20s and early 30s, and their hormones are postmenopausal. They have no progesterone, no estrogen. Their
Yeah,
stress
because they,
hormones are through the roof. Their thyroid is a mess. Their gut is a mess, and their inflammatory markers are through the roof. And so these are some of the physical effects of these behaviors, let alone the emotional. And the more we do this, this is an act of self hatred. And the more
Mm,
we self hate, the more unsafe the body feels. And the more stressed the
right.
body is from all the things I just mentioned, plus the body feeling rejected from you and all this self sabotage. If your body doesn't feel safe, it's very easy for it to hang on to protection, even if you're purging or you're not eating enough.
Right.
So,
We'll hang on to the
yeah,
whatever
it
little
actually
food
makes it
is right.
easier. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's it. That's so far we've spoken for like 15 minutes, but I'm thinking that that's probably going to be one of the big things that people take away because when you're purging, I mean, you're going through that because you want to get rid of those calories. I mean, and if
Mhm.
it's not going to do that, then what is the point of it? But yeah, I mean, wow. So let's get back to your relationship with your mom for a minute. So your
Mhm.
mom allowed you to eat as much as you want. She was
Mhm.
also an emotional eater. So you didn't mention in your story anything about getting professional help when you were a teenager. You didn't do that?
Nope. I didn't get any help.
All right, all
I
right.
didn't actually consciously know I was struggling with emotional eating until my early 20s, and the binge eating
Okay.
was really happening in my early 20s, and I didn't get help partially because at the time I couldn't afford it. And I had
Mm,
gone and seen one psychologist, and not to poo-poo psychologists, but I had a really poor experience. Poured my heart out for the first time about everything I was struggling with. It was very vulnerable, and she just looked at me and said, "Well, just don't go to the store and buy the food and love yourself." And I'm like, have you even been through this? She says, no, but I have my education. And I go, I feel judged. I don't feel like you get what I've gone through. I don't feel like
right.
you can do anything. And that triggered me to go binge. And I was upset because I spent money I didn't have. And now, like, I'm no further ahead. So there was like this invisible, like, quiet voice that's like, you're going to figure this out. You're going to do it by yourself. I just didn't know that the prompt of why was because I was going to be helping others with it.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's great. So, all right, let's stay on this for a little bit. So, how do you differentiate, binge eating, emotional eating, and food addiction? What are the
Yeah.
differences between those three things?
Totally. So we start with emotional eating, and I coin all of this under the umbrella of emotional eating is eating for any reason other than physical nourishment. So you mentioned boredom, sadness, loneliness. We can be in celebration but overdo it, right? We can eat because we are unhappy with the number on the scale, we're overwhelmed, we don't get enough sleep, and then you have increased appetite. So there's dozens and dozens of potential emotional eating triggers that I find my clients struggling with. But if you don't know what's triggering you, it's easy for the cycle to keep going or to grow. So you may emotionally eat and have a trigger and eat a half a chocolate bar or a little bag of chips or a handful of crackers. It may be like small amounts of food, but you feel guilt and shame afterward. You feel angry with yourself. You get hard on yourself, or you may feel some mild to moderate digestive discomfort, right? And then we have moderate emotional eating, which is where you're eating a whole chocolate bar or you're eating like, a bigger amount. Maybe you're not totally full and uncomfortable, but you're again using that food to cope because of these different emotions and habits that you're building, that you're wiring your brain to associate food with all of these things. Now, where we start to get into binge eating is the full loss of control. So, what triggers that? It's either you have a bite of something and it triggers the all or nothing mentality, which is screw it, I've messed up. Now I'm going to eat the rest of this and eat whatever I want because there's no point. I'll try again tomorrow. Or it's like, I've started and now I want to just keep going because I need to get the rest of this out of the house and I don't want to be tempted tomorrow. Right.
Wow, what a
Or
what a
there's
reason!
yeah, these are all the justifications I had because I'm like, I don't want to binge tomorrow,
Wow,
so I need to eat it all today because I don't want to be tempted tomorrow.
wow.
And also when we're in any kind of addictive behavior, whether it's with food, alcohol, scrolling, shopping, whatever it is, we have low dopamine and serotonin, and these are mood boosting neurotransmitters. Dopamine is your pleasure reward neurotransmitter, and anyone with addiction issues, emotional eating, binge eating, hormone issues, gut issues is more likely to have a low dopamine. And if your dopamine is low and your mood is low, you are far more likely to want to reach for something outside of you to give you that hit and that high. So when you take those first few bites, you get this huge dopamine high. It makes you feel so much pleasure and euphoria. And
Hmm.
that can trigger the loss of control in the binge as well. And then we have to eat more to get the same high or a bigger high.
Right.
So those things and like the screw it mentality will trigger us to want to eat until we're so full that we're sick. And also they put a lot of addictive ingredients into food on purpose to
Yeah.
increase our appetite, to mess with our blood sugar, and to push us into overconsumption. And ingredients like processed sugar, MSG, aspartame, as well as even wheat and dairy for some people can be immense causes of why we lose control and keep eating. So that is the binge eating. And then the food addiction is the full-blown asphyxiation with food, where you're not only in some spectrum of these behaviors, but you're constantly nonstop thinking about food, whether it's planning your next binge or emotional eating episode, you're
Mm,
planning your next diet, your next calorie counting, you're weighing and measuring your food, you're chasing numbers, the number on the scale, the calories, thinking about your next meal. Oh my gosh, I have this event tomorrow. I'm actually afraid to go because I'm the food and the temptation and I might lose control. And it's like 99% of your mental capacity is consumed by food,
mm,
numbers, trying to gain control, losing control, and obsession with food and your weight and things like that. So it's
wow.
very much it consumes so much of you. And I think one of the biggest things it robs you of is the presence in enjoying your life and also the time you can't get back.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What a vicious cycle. Wow.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things that you also say that is you can also be triggered if you're an empath, like, you
Mhm.
know.
Yes.
And yeah, so let's let's talk about that before we go on to how we can, how you can help other people,
Yeah.
overcome the situation. But yeah, so talk about if you're feeling sorry for someone, because that's what empath mean. You're
Mhm.
taking on the role of compassion. How does
Mhm.
that trigger you to eat?
Yeah, so there's a few levels to this. So not only is being an empath us like having compassion for others, we're literally taking on other people's stuff and we don't know how to set healthy boundaries around not doing so. I also find empaths are like more sensitive. They may go out in public and go to really public places and feel drained really easily or like feel a
Mm,
lot of emotion of other people around them and not know how to manage it.
it's
And
true. That's true.
so there's a few things that contribute to this becoming a trigger. The first thing is if you're an empath and you're afraid to feel your emotions and you're using food to shove down, numb, or, avoid feeling, that is emotional eating, and that is part of what causes this trigger. Just in general, though, if you're afraid to feel and you're using food to numb down, you're going to stay in these habits. We must start to give ourselves permission to feel through our emotions and actually show ourselves that even though it's uncomfortable, we're safe in that moment to feel. The second piece is empaths also, and just I think everyone in general, if we're ungrounded, if we're chaotic and overbooked and really busy and not taking any time for ourselves, we think we should eat and that will help us feel more grounded and calm and kind of like bring our presence back into ourselves. However, food is not going to do that. It's actually some form of self-care, some way to regulate your nervous system to feel more calm and peace, get outside, meditation, journal, breath, mindful movement, whatever those things are for you. And if you're not taking any time for yourself, you're going to be way more in your head and more frazzled. And then when your friend dumps all their stuff on you, you and your nervous system are not going to have capacity to hold it. And it's just like, I feel like I've just been put over the edge. Let me go and eat. And
Mm,
also, when your friend drops all their stuff on you and you feel sorry for them and you feel their anger and their sadness, if you feel uncomfortable feeling your emotions, well, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the food to numb it down and shove it down. So, those are some of the things I think that trigger empaths to emotionally eat. And also, when you reconnect with your intuition and your intuitive gifts, that can feel intimidating at first. I know it was for me, and I'm like, wow, I can feel and I'm sensing all these things. And there's this desire to numb it out a bit because if you don't know how to manage that, it can feel kind of scary in the beginning on how to manage. So, setting healthy boundaries, learning how to manage your intuition, your energy, feeling through emotions, and learning how to ground yourself are incredibly important for empaths, but also in general pertaining to feeling through emotions, self care, and taking time to process your emotions. Those are incredibly important to help you overcome any form of emotional eating, binge eating, food addiction, etc.
yeah, eating is it's one of those things that it's a very, I think it's probably a very hard addiction to deal with, because just like the therapist said to you, don't go to the store and don't buy the food. But you have to eat something. Something has to go in your mouth, right? I mean, the interview that I had one time with a person that was binge eating, she was binge and starving herself because she didn't
Yeah.
want to put food in your mouth, because the food in your mouth triggers something.
Yeah.
So, wow. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, my goodness, how can you help someone with an eating problem when you have to eat to survive? An alcoholic, you'll tell them, don't drink alcohol. It's
Yeah.
not part of your regular diet. So you can
Yeah.
not drink alcohol, right? Drugs, you can not take drugs, but food, you've got to eat. And I'm assuming that, a little piece of chocolate, as you just said, it's a trigger or whatever. So let me ask the question. Does it have to be something you like to trigger the binge, or just food, period?
Yeah, it could just be food period because when I started to heal my relationship with food, I reduced my processed sugar intake and my processed food intake. And when I still wanted to binge on 10 bananas and a jar of natural peanut butter, I was like, this is not the food. This is so much deeper than the food.
Deeper,
And this
right?
is the thing I
Okay.
see with people who stop drugs or drinking. They'll go to food because they may not
Yes.
have fully healed the wounds, the traumas, the unworthiness, and all the things that were triggering them to self sabotage in the first place. And so
Hmm.
it's not just about cutting out certain foods or minimizing your intake of certain foods, it is the deep emotional healing. So we must be willing to start learning about and building awareness about what's triggering us to binge or emotionally eat. We must
Okay.
understand these behaviors are rooted in unworthiness and not feeling good enough. There's a void to fill that you will never fill with food or alcohol or whatever that drug of choice is. We've got to start to feel through our emotions without needing to use food to cope. And we need time and space and tools to help us process through what's going on. So, this is
Mm-hmm.
what helps us realize the food is my drug of choice. However, it's my responsibility to start taking ownership and responsibility and understanding why I'm behaving like this. The other key driver here that is not talked about a lot that fuels these behaviors resides in the brain. So every time you repeat a habit, so one of my biggest triggers was eating at night and watching TV. I'd watch the same movie over and over again and binge. So every time you repeat a pattern, whether it's a healthy one or not, you're literally wiring a neural pathway in your brain or a
Hmm.
habit. And so even on the nights where I didn't want to binge,
Hmm.
it's like I felt such a strong pull. All of a sudden, it was
Oh,
like, I
yeah.
need to eat. And that's because that neural pathway is lighting up, going, it's time for you to do this. It's time for you to do this. So, one of the reasons why it could be any food is because if you don't understand that you have this pathway wired in your brain and it's going to take some time to dissolve it and build a new one, which is different habits and different ways to cope, you're going to keep building a stronger pathway and it's going to keep triggering you. So, that's why it's so important to be like, ooh, yeah, I'm triggered right now. What is it? And then we pattern interrupt and explore the trigger, which helps to dissolve the old pathway and build a new one. Right.
Hmm.
So that's a really important part of this that is not talked about a lot. And we also have to deal with our hormone issues because they are a huge fueler of binge and emotional eating. But there's often not a lot of people talking about both and how they fuel each other and cause increases in cravings and hunger and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that when you purge, you're disrupting your the hydrochloric acid in your
Hmm.
stomach, and it's affecting your hormones. But so if someone is not purging, are they going to still have hormone issues,
Oh,
or how is
God,
the hormone?
100%.
So how is the hormones involved in the emotional part of eating, which according, for what we're talking about here, that's the start of it, right? You've got the
Yeah.
emotional eating, and then you've got the food addiction, and then you've got the binging. So
Hmm.
we're starting with emotional eating. So if you're being triggered with emotional eating, how is your hormones playing into that? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, for women, it's estrogen, for men, it's testosterone, or is it the thyroid hormone? What hormones are we talking about?
It's everything. So often I find the hormones are going at a whack before people are getting into emotional eating behaviors because you've had traumas, you've had wounds, you've had things happen that are putting you into a chronic heightened fight or flight stress response. That starts
Right.
spiking cortisol, which is one of your stress hormones. And once your cortisol
Yeah.
goes off, everything else is impacted. And I work with so many women who are in the weight body battle. So they've been dieting chronically, restricting, over exercising for a very long time. And that all messes up your hormones royally and then can trigger overeating and loss of control with food, let alone if you're restricting, over exercising, and then losing control with food. Any of those cycles significantly impact the hormones. So, and if you're also using food to cope, you're probably very stressed. There's a level of insecurity and unworthiness going on for you. And that puts you into more negative self talk, worst case scenario thinking, fear, where you don't trust yourself and you don't trust perhaps like that everything actually works out in your favor. And that all puts you into a stress response. And if you're taking on everyone's stuff and you're people pleasing and you're overbooked and you're last on your
Wow.
list, that all
You
causes
make me
hormone
want to
issues.
eat.
And then you want to eat. So you don't even have to be emotionally eating and you can have significant hormone issues because you're last on
Yeah.
your list and you're
Mhm.
overgiving. So when it comes to emotional eating, the kind of trifecta that I see is there's a lack of ability to cope. There's a lot of stress. You may be in the weight body battle. Your cortisol goes up. Cortisol is your stress hormone. The irony of a cortisol is the first symptoms of it are fatigue, exhaustion, troubles getting pregnant, fertility issues, and weight gain. So what do we do
And
when we
sleep.
start?
You can't sleep when you've got high cortisol, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely plays a factor. But what do we do when we start gaining weight? We panic, freak out, restrict more, and exercise more. That's going to make your cortisol higher and make you gain more weight. Or
Yeah.
maybe put you into the screw up mentality. That isn't working. So I'm going to go eat whatever I want. And that's all going to spike your cortisol higher. Brain fog
Mm.
as well with
Yeah.
cortisol, sensitive
Yeah.
digestion, troubles falling asleep. Also, when your cortisol's high, it increases ghrelin, and that's your hunger hormone that makes you hungry.
Mm.
So you literally
Yes, I
can
heard
eat
that.
more,
Yes. Hmm.
and it dulls your body's ability to produce leptin, which is your fullness hormone. So you're
Oh,
more hungry. You don't get a fullness signal as easily. So it's actually so much easier to overeat when cortisol's high, and you have more cravings for sugar, refined carbs, and salt. So that is all just like that in itself, having a
oh
cortisol
my
issue
gosh.
is a
Oh
huge
my gosh.
emotional eating trigger, right? And then we haven't even got into any of the other ones yet. So we start to
Oh,
see
wow.
the
Hmm.
significance. And I work with thousands of women in the last 12 years. Every single one of them has had high cortisol. I had high cortisol. It's an epidemic because women are not prioritizing their needs,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Wow.
then, yeah, I don't know if you
But
want to
I'm
go
glad
into
I
any of the
asked the
other ones, but
question
there's a
because
lot.
I'm thinking of like the sex hormones or something. But yeah, you were talking about
Oh,
totally different hormones.
well, sex
So,
hormones also impact
what
this, and the thyroid, and your insulin, and your glucose.
everything, right?
Your gut flora can make you crave more sugar. Like, and most women have low progesterone. And if your progesterone's low, you feel more anxious.
Mhm.
Progesterone's the calming hormone. So if you're not feeling emotionally stable, flatlined, apathetic, indifferent, resentful, or you're not feeling it all because it's low, you're more inclined to reach for food to feel and to get that dopamine high.
Yes.
So yeah,
Mm.
there's a lot with hormones and emotional eating.
Wow. I'm sure in your book you probably you spend a lot of time in this because it sounds pretty in depth. Wow. Awesome. Okay, so you have something that's called the Path to Body Freedom for women who are ready to heal. So, and one of the things that you do is you're working on their mindset, which is a double whammy for this show because we're mindset focused. So what's one mindset or daily practice that they can start right now to reconnect with their bodies and try to understand what's causing the triggers to emotionally eat?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, the first best practice is to start asking yourself two questions. First question, do I know the difference between physical and emotional hunger? And second question, before I go to food, is this physical or emotional hunger? And
Mhm.
just so women know the difference if they're not sure, physical hunger looks like things like you get a hunger signal, your stomach growls, you notice at the clock, oh, I haven't eaten in a few hours, it's time to eat. Try not to wait till your blood sugar crashes, but that's the feelings of like feeling dizzy, faint, lightheaded, you get a little shaky. All of a
Mhm.
sudden you're
Mhm.
hangry, your mood drops, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's another binge eating trigger, an emotional eating trigger. But those are physical signs. And then everything else is emotional. So unless you are physically hungry, ideally we don't want to just go to food. And that's where it will prompt you into, okay, well, now that I know it's emotional, what has been going on the last few days or week that may be triggering me to want to go to food? And you can pull your journal out, you can reflect for a few minutes, but you have to be willing to start dedicating some time to asking yourself these questions and building awareness for yourself if you want to be able to catch it and shift it. So, those are very powerful questions to start asking yourself on the daily.
As you were talking, I just remembered something because a lot of, I mean, maybe not to the extent that we're talking about here, but a lot of people have night eating, and I was one of them, right? Where you're bored at night and you just go to the you go to the fridge, I said bathroom, you go to the fridge and you take out something. And I think I was listening to Deepak Chopra, and he or someone was saying that if you stop yourself from going, then you want to go even more. So you should just go and maybe eat less. How does that work? I mean, when you ask yourself, if it's emotional eating, and the answer is yes, what do you do? Do you
Yeah.
not go and get the food, or you make eat a little piece of that chocolate bar instead of the whole thing?
Yeah, I don't agree with Deepak on this one because allowing yourself to go enables the behavior and keeps wiring the pathway in the brain. And you're not looking at the root of what is fueling this behavior in the first place. And if you really want to heal it, you've got to be willing to look at it and stop enabling it. This is about you taking ownership and responsibility for why you're self sabotaging. We are hurting ourselves when we're doing this, and we need to be fully honest with ourselves that that is what we are doing. So, yes, it's not about saying I can't or I shouldn't or don't, because those words will trigger you into rebellion and you'll want to go and do it more. So it's
Right.
like,
That's basically what I was trying to
yeah.
get to. Right.
Before I go and do that, I need to get curious around why do I want that right now? What is that really about? Instead of going into the kitchen, I'm going to go into my room and close the door and I'm going to journal about it. I'm going to think and reflect about it. I'm going to pull out a book. I'm going to take some time and really go, why do I need that? Because again, part of that night eating is you've wired the pathway in your brain and it's lighting up.
Yes.
And in order to dissolve it and change the pattern, you're going to have to interrupt and go and do something different. Doesn't
Right.
matter to me whether it's boredom or whatever it is self-sabotage to your body. Because if we eat right before bed,
Right.
it's so stressful on your circadian rhythm, your blood sugar, sleep. And again,
Hmm.
you're enabling these behaviors. So to me, it's about I'm aware that this is a really tempting time for me. So I'm going to build in some self care time. I'm going to understand what this is really about. And I'm going to put effort into unwiring this pathway and building a new one. Right?
Yeah.
That to me is ultimately the answer. It's not about that you can never eat in front of a TV or you can never have an indulgence. This is about
Right.
balance with
Right.
food. And I want you to enjoy your cake and eat it too. But it's
Hmm.
about being able to eat one piece of cake and eat it slowly and mindfully and enjoy the moment and then move on to the next moment. No guilt, no shame, no trigger to lose control. It's just like now I'm moving on to the next moment of enjoying my day and you're detached from it, right? So that's the goal here. And the healing is what's going to give you that freedom. I don't eat emotionally anymore. I have not for 14, 15 years.
Good
I
for you.
feel stuff. I don't use unhealthy coping mechanisms because I've taken ownership and responsibility. So I know it's possible. And I
That's
get
good.
it's uncomfortable. I get we want to go for the stuff. But what's more important is having my health and my
Yes.
longevity and
Yes.
being here for a long time. And that is what I held far more important than getting another dopamine high. You can boost your dopamine and serotonin in other healthier ways like getting
Yes.
sunshine and
Yes.
meditation. So what we have to decide is am I willing to keep letting these behaviors interfere with my health and my well-being and cost me aspects of my life, or am I ready to actually start working away at it and shifting it? Because it costs us a lot to stay in these behaviors, regardless of
Yes.
if they're minimal or really intensive for you. And it does have a significant negative impact on your mental and physical health, your potentially your relationships, your finances, etc. And so, yeah, it's about taking ownership and responsibility. And instead of quick fixes, actually doing root cause healing.
Yes. Amazing. Yes. We all have to do the work, and you can't
Yes.
get anything in life unless you're willing to do the work. So,
Yes.
yeah, it is a lot of work, and it's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, But then, like you said, as you keep rewiring the brain and the neural pathways, it's going
Yeah.
to get easier as you go along. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a perfect example. 14 years now, you haven't had any of the urges, and you've healed yourself, and you went through, I would say, maybe 14 years or more of doing this bad behavior, because you
Mm-hmm.
started out as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, and then you went to the teenagers in the early 20s and things like that. So it's always good to let people see the destination, that they can happen. So
Yeah.
you have a something that's called the Body Freedom Masterclass. Can you tell our listeners about this masterclass, and how they can um, uh, get in touch with you and your class, and
Yeah.
also
So
your podcast?
yeah. So the podcast is called the No Sugarcoating Podcast, and we have over 600 episodes. And if you like today, you'll love the show. There's all kinds of different topics. I'm thinking it was maybe the body freedom consultation. I don't have a body freedom masterclass.
Okay.
Maybe it was the emotional eating masterclass, maybe. So I have a free emotional eating masterclass if you want to come and learn more about starting to deal with emotional or binge eating. And then I have a body freedom consultation, which is 30 minutes. It's complimentary. We can hop on Zoom together and talk more about your struggles, your goals, where you're seeking support, and why a different approach could be exactly what you need to gain food and body freedom. And you can book that on my website at amberapproved.ca. Everything is really there, and you can find the podcast everywhere. And yeah, like healing is fully possible. Like I gained my life back by healing. I would not be here talking to you, having this amazing conversation. I would not have a beautiful business where I get to work for myself and have my own schedule. I would not have manifested my amazing husband and like done so much healing in my like so many amazing things I gained by choosing to put in the work and do the healing. And so I want to encourage you that like so many magic and miracles are available and on the other side of doing this healing, and you don't know all the amazingness that's going to come from it. Not that you don't have amazingness now, but it will be amplified if you're free of these behaviors and you love yourself.
Yeah, well, we didn't touch a lot on it, but I mean, self-worth and
Hmm.
self-image is so, so important. And if
Yes.
you said something about 80 pounds in 4 months or something.
Yeah.
That is huge. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You see these shows where they talk about my 600-pound life, and these type of things. That's what happens if you
Hmm.
don't take this into control. You're right. It's your
Totally.
longevity, it's your mental health, it is your self-esteem.
Hmm.
All these things are very important. And yes, you have to have um, a destination. You have to put your why. You have to
Hmm.
see why you want it, and and you're willing to
Yeah.
do the work. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. All right. So you've got a consultation, a 30-minute consultation, and then you have got a master class, and they can find
Yeah.
all this on your website, which is your name.ca.
Amberapproved.ca.
Amber what?
Amberapproved.ca.
Approved. Okay. You said
Yeah.
that so fast. I thought it was your last
Oh,
name.
yeah.
All right. And are you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and YouTube, and it's my name at Amber Romaniuk, Romaniuk. So come say hello, and I am happy to support you however I can.
Yeah. So Amber, I mean, I love guests that know their stuff. I mean, you knew your stuff.
Thank you.
And
It's been
you
a
were
journey.
able to talk deeply on this topic. This wasn't fluff. This wasn't surface. You went very deep into emotional mindset, what exactly is happening with the body, what exactly happened is your mind, how you get these triggers and things like that. So I'm sure that you have an amazing podcast. But yeah, I mean, when we consume things in small bites, it's great to get more information and go deeper. I mean, this conversation that we've had is just to bring awareness to
Mhm.
what is possible. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you guys want to learn more, then definitely connect with Amber. She's been through it, she's at the destination, and she can help you get there, because it's very important that you make changes, right? If
Hmm.
you're
Yeah.
stuck in this cycle of binge eating and emotional eating, and we don't even have to go to a diagnosis of you know, a food addiction. Most women, men, I keep saying women because I think mostly women do it, but I have a son-in-law that my daughter sent me a picture one time where while she was sleeping, he ordered the most humongous amount of candy. He just
Mm,
called DoorDash and had it
mm,
delivered and
mm.
sat and ate that, all
Yeah.
that at one sitting. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, he's got issues too. So, I
Yep.
mean,
Men
but
struggle
yours,
too.
what was that?
Men struggle too. It's actually
Yeah.
one of the latest stats is 90% of the female population in North America and 50% of the male population struggle with some form of emotional relationship with food or body image issues. And you don't need a diagnosis and it's not permanent. You can fully heal it, but it is an epidemic right now.
Yeah. Well, what I
Yeah.
was trying to say is that, I mean, we can go to the extreme where you have a real problem, or you can just
Mhm.
be dabbling in it.
Yeah.
And we all dabble in
Totally.
it. Like I just said, I emotionally eat. Usually at night when I'm bored and, I had to stop myself from going and eating stuff at night.
Yeah.
Because you're right. When you want to practice, intermittent fasting, when you eat your dinner at 7 o'clock, you're not supposed to eat again until 11 in the morning or something. So I had to stop that. But yeah, it was really because I was bored.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, what can I fill the boredom with? A self-care
Yeah,
practice, like time for myself, time to tend to myself, right? Like there's always a way. And it's just about kind of reframing what I
yeah.
really need instead of
Interrupting the
food.
pattern. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I took control of mine. But once in a while, I just bought ice cream. But right. So what I'm saying is this conversation is good for everybody. A hundred
Yes.
percent of
Totally.
people that are listening to this can take something from our conversation, right?
Yeah.
So that's basically what I was trying to get to. So Amber, yeah, this has been very enjoyable and I learned a lot from you today, and that's what I love my guests to do. Educate me as well as my listening audience on a subject that I didn't know about. So thank you very much for the deep dive. Thank you very much for being in the show. I will have a transcript of my conversation with Amber on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I will link out to her Instagram handle, link out to her website. And yeah, you guys can definitely keep in touch. And Amber, when the episode is live, I will also tag you on Instagram. All right.
Awesome. I cannot wait to share it. Thank you for having me. It's been my
You're
pleasure.
very welcome. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. Thanks, Amber. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.